Right now, 20% of the daily global energy supply is choking to death in a narrow 21-mile stretch of water known as the Strait of Hormuz. 3 commercial cargo vessels have been struck by unknown projectiles in just 24 hours. One is currently burning off the coast of Dubai. While mainstream television networks are desperately trying to distract you with endless coverage of a downed refueling aircraft in Iraq, or the horrific domestic tragedies at Old Dominion University and a Detroit synagogue, you are missing the silent, invisible missile heading straight for your bank account. This is not just another random geopolitical flare-up. This is a highly calculated, engineered wealth transfer designed to break the American middle class. The politicians standing at their podiums are telling you that we are projecting strength and securing the region, but the absolute reality at the gas pump tells a much darker, unforgiving story. When global oil prices flirt with the catastrophic level of $150 a barrel, the economic shockwave is instant. Every single item you buy, every piece of food delivered to your local grocery store, and every package dropped at your front door skyrockets in price because the cost of diesel fuel dictates the cost of survival. We are already looking at a 70-cent jump in gas prices almost overnight, and economic analysts know that is just the opening move on the chessboard. This video is going to strip away the political theater and show you the brutal, asymmetric math of modern conflict. We will reveal how a handful of insurance executives in London hold more power over global supply chains than the United States Navy, why a missing retired Air Force general might be the most terrifying piece of this entire puzzle, and exactly what the smart money is doing right now to survive the Federal Reserve's upcoming inflation nightmare. You need to understand that the chaos you see on your screen is not random coincidence. It is a mathematical equation, and right now, you are the one paying the bill. Are you ready to see how the game is actually played behind closed doors? Let us dive into the numbers they do not want you to look at. We have officially entered an era where military superiority is no longer measured by the size of a battleship or the speed of a jet, but by the devastating logic of asymmetric economics. Let us break down the exact mathematical formula that is quietly bankrupting the current Western financial system. When you watch the evening news, you see glorious high-definition footage of advanced missile defense systems intercepting threats in the night sky. What the anchors conveniently forget to tell you is the catastrophic receipt attached to that interception. Our adversaries are launching heavily modified drone systems, specifically the Shahed variants, which cost roughly $35,000 to produce. To shoot down that $35,000 piece of flying plastic and commercial lawnmower parts, the United States and its allies are forced to fire a Patriot missile. A single Patriot interceptor costs approximately $4 million. If the incoming threat requires a terminal high-altitude area defense system, that price tag jumps to over $13 million per shot. This is not a sustainable military strategy. It is a highly engineered financial bleeding operation. If an adversary launches a swarm of 100 cheap drones, it costs them a mere $3.5 million. To achieve a 100% interception rate and protect the assets on the ground, we must spend $400 million in a matter of minutes. They do not need to sink our multi-billion-dollar aircraft carriers to win the war. They just need to exhaust our national treasury. Military analysts from top British security briefings have recently pointed out that conventional threats like ballistic missiles are only a fraction of the equation. The real danger is the cost-to-kill ratio. Every single day this continues. Billions of dollars of taxpayer wealth are incinerated in the upper atmosphere. This money does not just vanish into thin air. It represents deferred investments in your domestic infrastructure, your healthcare, and your social safety nets. The military-industrial complex is logging record-breaking profits, turning cheap incoming fire into expensive outbound dividends for major defense contractors. Our adversaries have realized that the absolute easiest way to defeat an economic superpower is to force it to spend itself into oblivion. If you want to know who really controls the flow of global commerce and dictates the price of your survival,
Agreed.
You should stop looking at the Pentagon and start looking at a few quiet square miles in the financial district of London. The true, undisputed gatekeepers of the global supply chain are the maritime insurance underwriters. Right now, there is a massive fleet of commercial ships idling in the ocean, hesitating to enter the Persian Gulf. Why are they stopped? Because the insurance premiums have mutated into an absolute financial nightmare. Before this recent escalation, the standard war risk premium for a vessel passing through the Strait of Hormuz was around 0.025% of the ship's total value. Today, because of the burning ships and constant disruptions, those rates have skyrocketed to 3% or higher in some extreme cases. Let us put that terrifying math into perspective. If a cargo ship is valued at $100 million, a 0.025% premium is $25,000. At a 3% premium, that exact same transit now costs $3 million in insurance alone. That staggering figure does not even count the value of the cargo. the massive fuel consumption, or the hazard pay required to convince a crew to sail into a danger zone. Ship owners are faced with an impossible choice. They can pay the extortionate insurance rates and pray they make it through, or they can reroute their massive vessels completely around the continent of Africa. Rerouting adds thousands of miles to the journey, burns thousands of tons of extra diesel, and delays critical deliveries by weeks. Who do you honestly think absorbs those millions of dollars in extra logistical costs? It is not the massive shipping conglomerates, and it is certainly not the wealthy insurance executives in London. Those costs are baked directly into the price tag of everything you buy. This is the shadow tax of global geopolitics. The United States government can promise military escorts all day long, but if Lloyd's of London decides a shipping route is uninsurable, global trade simply stops. The next time you notice the price of your daily groceries creeping up again, remember that you are paying the war risk premium for a ship you will never see. While the attention of the general public is intentionally glued to burning oil tankers and chaotic political press conferences, a highly disturbing anomaly has occurred right in our own backyard, one that could change the balance of global power. A retired Air Force general, an individual who held the keys to some of the most sensitive aerospace and technological secrets in the nation, has vanished without a trace. The official media narrative casually mentions that he left without his secure phone and that there is no foul play suspected. Does anyone with a shred of critical thinking actually believe that a high-ranking military official, deeply embedded in advanced research laboratories, simply wanders off into the woods without his communication devices in the middle of the most severe global geopolitical crisis in decades? This is not a random missing persons case. This is a glaring red flag indicating a shadow war in the realm of advanced technology and cybersecurity. Let us connect the actual dots. Modern conflict, from the drone swarms paralyzing the Middle East to the targeting systems on those burning cargo ships, is entirely dependent on advanced microchips, satellite uplinks, and uncrackable digital encryption. The entities that control the research and development of these core technologies hold the ultimate high ground. We are currently witnessing an unprecedented, silent race for technological supremacy, specifically in artificial intelligence and autonomous combat systems. The sudden disappearance of an individual with intimate classified knowledge of our aerospace vulnerabilities at the exact moment our defense systems are being stress-tested globally is highly suspicious. Are we looking at a defection, an extraction by a foreign intelligence service, or something even darker hidden within the black budget world? The mainstream media gives this a 30-second segment before cutting back to the emotional chaos in the streets because they thrive on panic, not logic. But those who understand game theory know that the most critical moves on the geopolitical chessboard happen in complete silence. The missing general represents the unseen battlefield. If our adversaries can compromise our foundational technology, the physical war is already lost. Now, we must arrive at the absolute core of the economic devastation heading your way. For the past 2 years, the Federal Reserve has been playing a high-stakes, dangerous game of chicken with the American economy, desperately trying to crush inflation by hiking interest rates. They promised the public a soft landing. They confidently told us that the target of 2% inflation was finally within reach. But the cascading events unfolding in the Strait of Hormuz have just incinerated the Federal Reserve's entire monetary playbook. Inflation is fundamentally driven by the cost of energy. Oil is the lifeblood of the global manufacturing economy. When 20% of the world's oil supply is directly threatened, and international prices threaten to breach $150 a barrel, the cost of manufacturing, transporting, and selling every single commodity spikes uncontrollably. This phenomenon is known as cost-push inflation, and it is the absolute worst nightmare for any central bank. Why is it so dangerous? Because the Federal Reserve cannot print more barrels of oil, and they cannot bomb prices lower, their only weapon against inflation is raising interest rates to destroy consumer demand. But if they raise rates now, while the global supply chain is freezing up, they will plunge the United States directly into a severe, crippling recession. If they choose to do nothing, the cost of living will skyrocket, wiping out whatever is left of the middle class's savings accounts. Wall Street institutions know this reality. Financial elites are already quietly repositioning their massive portfolios for a sustained period of stagflation, a toxic, wealth-destroying combination of stagnant economic growth and persistently high inflation. What does this mean for your family? It means that the American dream of affordable housing is dead for the foreseeable future. Mortgage rates, which were supposed to cool down, will likely surge well past 7 or 8% as bond yields violently react to the geopolitical risk. The silent tax of inflation will eat away at your purchasing power every single day. You are the primary source of funding for this conflict through the silent devaluation of your currency. There is a profound, almost comical hypocrisy in the way global economic sanctions are presented to the voting public. We are constantly told by talking heads that our adversaries are completely isolated, cut off from the global financial system, and slowly being squeezed into submission by our brilliant policies. Yet, these supposedly crippled nations continue to fund massive military operations, launch daily strikes, and develop advanced, highly technical weaponry. How is this mathematically possible? Welcome to the lucrative reality of the shadow supply chain and the ghost fleets. Right now, as legitimate commercial vessels are burning or rerouting thousands of miles, a massive armada of unregistered, uninsured, and untrackable ships is moving millions of barrels of oil across the oceans. These are the ghost fleets. They operate by turning off their automatic identification systems, deliberately disabling their transponders, and engaging in highly risky ship-to-ship transfers of oil in the dead of night. They utilize complex shell companies, fake flags of convenience, and completely opaque, decentralized financial networks to bypass every single sanction imposed by the West. This illicit, off-the-books oil is then bought at a steep discount by massive industrial powers in Asia, who are more than happy to fuel their booming economies with cheap energy. This is a massive multi-billion-dollar loophole that makes an absolute mockery of international law. While Western citizens are paying record-breaking prices at the pump and suffering under crippling inflation, our adversaries are raking in massive profits through this black market economy. This untraceable revenue is immediately weaponized. It buys the components for the $35,000 drones that our $4 million missiles are forced to shoot down. The ghost fleets prove definitively that the global economy is no longer unipolar. A parallel economic system has been completely constructed right in front of our eyes. The wealth of the West is actively being drained and transferred to the very entities we are told we are defeating. When the entire macroeconomic system is actively working against you, financial ignorance is your greatest liability. The wealthy elite and institutional investors do not sit around hoping for the evening news to get better. They ruthlessly adapt to the mathematical reality. So, what exactly is the smart money doing right now, while the masses are paralyzed by fear and doom-scrolling through endless tragedies on their phones? They are executing the wealth preservation protocol. First, they are aggressively and quietly moving away from fiat currency. When governments are forced to print trillions of dollars out of thin air to fund endless foreign conflicts and bail out a fragile banking system, the purchasing power of the dollar ultimately collapses. Smart investors are anchoring their wealth in hard, tangible assets. Gold, which has historically been the ultimate, time-tested hedge against geopolitical instability and currency debasement, is seeing massive, unprecedented accumulation by central banks around the world. They know exactly what is coming. Second, they are looking closely at the commodities supercycle. If the global supply chains for oil, natural gas, wheat, and rare earth minerals are compromised by conflict and ghost fleets, the intrinsic value of those physical goods will absolutely rise. Energy sectors and defense contractors are also the obvious, undeniable beneficiaries of this chaos. As long as the asymmetric warfare continues, the demand for military hardware and secure energy sources will remain astronomical. Finally, there is a serious, undeniable pivot toward decentralized assets. In a world where governments can freeze bank accounts, sanction entire nations overnight, and monitor every digital transaction, the demand for sovereign, unconfiscatable wealth is higher than ever in human history. The fundamental difference between the wealthy and the middle class right now is simply a matter of strategic positioning. The middle class holds on to cash and prays that inflation magically stops. The wealthy trade their depreciating cash for hard assets that absorb inflation. You cannot stop the geopolitical storm, but you can build a financial fortress. We have successfully peeled back the polished layers of the mainstream narrative to expose the cold, hard machinery operating underneath. The tragedies we see unfold on campuses and in our communities, the downed aircraft, and the burning ships in the Strait of Hormuz, are all deeply traumatizing events. But if you only consume them as isolated, emotional tragedies, you become a willing victim of the psychological warfare known as the mean world syndrome. Your stress levels spike, your anxiety completely paralyzes you, and you become fundamentally incapable of making rational, calculated decisions about your future and your finances. That is exactly where the system needs you to be. A frightened, reactionary population is easy to manage and even easier to extract wealth from through inflation and taxes. You must elevate your perspective immediately. The events we are witnessing are the aggressive symptoms of a massive global restructuring. The unipolar dominance of the Western financial system is being openly challenged by asymmetric warfare, ghost fleets, and alternative supply chains. The Federal Reserve is trapped in a burning building between crushing inflation and triggering a severe recession. The insurance choke points in London are taxing every single transaction you make. This is not the end of the world. It is simply the end of the grand illusion. Global wealth is not being destroyed. it is merely changing hands at a rapid pace. The ultimate question is not who will win the next political election or which side will prevail in the Middle East. The only question that truly matters to your family is this: are you going to allow your hard-earned purchasing power to be collateral damage in this global wealth transfer? Or are you going to take proactive steps today to secure your assets? Stop letting the toxic news cycle dictate your emotional state. Start looking at the world strictly through the lens of supply, demand, and monetary policy. The chessboard has been permanently reset, and the next move is entirely up to you. What specific asset class are you researching this week to protect yourself from the incoming inflation shock? Drop your strategy in the comments below. Keep your eyes wide open, and never stop questioning the official narrative.